single activity code in my entire county that they use, and I could be missing out because a lot of them are inactive or not used, and I could need 20 or 30% to test to actually get some good data. Any questions? Yeah.
What percentage are you testing using this?
I generally test about 5% is my average, depending on how big the report is. If it's a ginormous report, I may test less or just test portions of it, because some of my reports literally would take me, brand new fresh report with no basis behind it, I could spend 2 to 3 days just testing the report to make sure the data is valid.
And in terms of the test itself, you execute the report and then do you eyeball the result, or do you use any kind of electronic regression testing software?
So we don't have any regression testing software. So we do have an in-house SQL database that we've linked up through ODBC to Access. So I'll run some quick access. I'll run some pivot tables just to do some validation on the data. So it's a little more manual in our shop, which is probably what I've heard from most people, unfortunately. How's everybody else doing their data testing? Users?
Does anyone do electronic regression testing? So everyone's doing some form of manual testing. So I think the bigger question would be how many people are just doing, the regular reports, the ones that are most heavily used, as opposed to how many people are just doing, like Amanda is, random sampling.
It depends on the actual project and
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
Some things are super sensitive, in which case we're pretty much doing kind of a full regression and we test all the reports that utilize something that we're changing a larger scope of. And then for other things, if we're regression testing simple patching or something, we totally do sampling. We sample the reports against the content, and then we sample the data that's in the report.
Yeah, and we publish 2 primary types of reports. So we have what we consider county document reports, and they're the ones that the finance office writes, maintains, manages, owns, and we throw it through a number of tests before we release it so we don't get those email blasts. And then a department can call me and say, I just need this one modification. I will generally run it, do a quick eyeball check to make sure it's good. I'll give it to them and say, you own this. You have to validate. You have to test it. It's not something I'm publishing. So you have to make sure that it's working. So if it's theirs, then they own it. I let the customer be responsible if it doesn't work. But a lot of those are great requests, and I end up turning it into a county document or published report, so more than that department can use it. At that point, it should be going through some sort of really nice regression testing and verification before we publish it and give it out there, because we don't want people to feel as though the reports are not valid, because then they don't trust it and they don't use the system. And our finance system, although it has some amazing functionality, we went from an old DOS-based system to a Windows system. So the old DOS system really doesn't give you the functionality to go and look at stuff on the screen. You get to enter it and see some basics, but on the screen I can do a lot of stuff in the new system. So yeah, that's an option. Users can use that, but it's not as great as doing input controls and filters and doing all that stuff. When I was doing my basic Info Advantage training, I think the best thing I taught people was you can filter here, you can do input controls here, and you don't have to export everything to Excel. Because I would have people run these great reports, and then they'd export them and then do all this extra stuff to them. And I'm like, but just take 2 seconds and do it here and it's done. And they're like, I didn't even know that was possible. So the other thing I do a lot of is, actually my next slide, let me run over to that real quick. Templates. So we have some in-house templates. We did not have them at Go Live, so we have instructions on how to streamline or make reports look similar for those reports that were written prior to Go Live and before any templates were designed for us. We want a certain font, we want certain colors, we don't want that pretty blue header that comes up because we don't want to waste ink when we're printing. We want to make sure that it's got an underline on it. For our budget book, we run a lot of reports through Business Objects for our budget book. So they have specific requirements on how it looks and feels, and do you use a 2-digit number for your numeric, or do you use commas, or do you not? So all of that is written up in an instruction document, so you don't have to remember. So having a template or an instruction on how to create the reports is extremely important. The other thing I always do with my reports when I finish is I export. So I want to export it to whatever methodology I think my users are going to use. For us, I export to PDF and I export to Excel because I want to see how it looks when they're going to take it out. Some reports do great. Some reports are horrible when they come out. And if that's the method that our user is going to use, I might need to format it differently. So that's I think one of the biggest problems when we upgraded. We had our company write a bunch of reports and they never exported them. So when I exported them the first time, it wasn't printing on one page, it wasn't formatted, you couldn't see any of the data, it had the number signs. I'm like, this isn't usable. I mean, most users are not going to look at it in the system and look at it and go, yay, I looked at it, because our management's not going to get into the system. Their management's going to look at a PDF or an Excel. So it has to be exportable for them. So that is how I deal with my data. Do we have any questions? Do we want to share how you guys do your data? We found a lot of people are probably doing something similar and not using the automated systems that you guys probably have more access to and have used in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Well, there are some third-party tools on the market, specific, to business objects like 360 Bind, which fundamentally just allows you to run all your reports and produce an XML output, and then, migrate them or change the underlying data and then run them again and then do a comparison, right?
Yeah.
And it does both the data and a pixel comparison. So it's a useful tool when you're doing a major migration.
Yeah.
Or when you're changing universes, or something like that. But we found a lot of customers who have got quite creative. And what they do is they basically will run the reports, schedule them themselves and so forth, and then use tools in Excel for doing the comparison using Excel add-ons, or there's a tool out there called Beyond Compare.
Okay.
Anyone seen that?
Yeah, I've used that in Word before, Beyond Compare.
Beyond Compare.
Use that a lot with my coding.
Which will also do an interesting, comparison for you. And so that's why I was asking, because I know some people will do that, just to save time, because it does speed things up.
And a lot of IT departments have that because they use it to check codes. So if you're writing a code and you're changing a code, my IT department has it, but they don't kind of publish it and tell you about it. So during an upgrade, you might reach out to some of your friends in low places and say, hey, do we have one of these and can we run it? Because there may be licenses out there, people that have it and know how to use it. So find your resources to help you out too.
Do you ever try configuring your CSS file? Okay. And so we have a lot of different customers that Vixel works for. And I put the logo out on the servers, the VO server, so that we basically create an object. I've got a VO object that will go look at whatever that customer number is for that report and grab the right logo, and it's right on top. And I've got the Vixel logo, the colors that they want, the fonts that they want.
Nice.
All that is in the CSS, so every time somebody creates a new report, it comes out looking to begin with the way that you want it to. So
That's very helpful.
That does help.
We are limited on some of the fields and some of the things that we have access to because it is managed through our Advantage company, CGI. So there is some things that they don't let us touch. So we're limited on some. Yes. Yes. So we are limited in some of the stuff that we have.
And just to follow up too, when I was at the county, for the brief time I was my sabbatical at the county, we did work on getting some of that CSS stuff, working on some of the different things with the CSS, and we found we can export CSS files and we can import it on top of what's already there, and it formats and changes those things for us. So it does some of those there was some limitations as that, doing it that way versus having it start off with the CSS,
But also templates. We've seen some amazing dashboards that you guys have done for the Olympics and stuff as samples that, you know, you can bring logos in and you can do a bunch of stuff in templates. So there's a lot of different ways. I mean, especially if you're limited and you don't have access to the CMC and the CSS files, there are other ways on the front end to build templates and to have you start from that. When we went live, nobody really trained us and we didn't know about this great group back then. So we didn't start coming to this group, I think, until about a year and a half after our first upgrade, because we were one of those people back on a way old version of Business Objects. We had the Desky and the Webby and all those fun rich client that we were using.